Oh, Ninja, do you want to bring that box?
Okay, we are live now. So mute yourself mute yourself, guys. So welcome everyone to this roundtable talk from Marvina, mute yourself. So welcome if you're watching tonight. We've got a really big topic. It's a really heavy one. I mean, it's always heavy where we go with these conversations, and we usually dive straight in as well. So, you know, brace yourself. But this is a really heavy one, and it's been weighing on me this week, like in a really, really heavy way, because I ended up learning. You learn every day, don't you? But I ended up learning more stuff like about the history of environmentalism and conservationism. And all right, first of all, I say that I'm Hester, and I'm from the Trusted People Project, which is all about community engagement and community democracy, and really changing the world to be the one that we want to see. And that starts always like at grassroots level. It's the people on the ground that are knocking on doors, seeing if their neighbours are okay and things like that. So we know that we're lacking something, that the society's all wrong. And we know that COVID has made the gaps between the rich and poor and the gaps of inequality in our society like so much bigger. The millionaires have been made, billionaires have been made, while other people are, you know, don't have enough to eat, and people are passing away at home with no one checking on them, and, you know, people are being evicted and stuff like that. But this conversation today, it's very close to my heart because I'm a climate activist, and it's about how, well, it's actually it's about Alison. That's why I wanted to do this. Alison's here today because this conversation is about an article. Well, the starting point is an article that Alison wrote after she and I met at this conference, and I think I was quite upset on that day because I was going to this conference. It was all about adaptation and change, and it was just a room full of white people again, sort of aged between 40 and 60. And in her article that she wrote a bit later, it's about the inextricable link between racism and climate change. And I think when I read it, I was just so blown away that you'd done this, and to make it clear basically for people that aren't getting it. And what I was hoping also that you'd share with us as we talk today is like what happened in that moment where like the penny dropped and you got it. And I'm still waiting for that to happen to most of my fellow climate activists who are white British, and I see it's not happening quick enough. And yeah, so it is a heavy one. It is a heavy one because it links to what's come before us, and always, you know, we are trying to envision the change that's going to take us to that future that we want and deserve and need and we're longing for. So I'm just going to go around. It'd be great if you say hello, say your name, and maybe say something you look forward to about this topic or this talk, and something like that that maybe you don't. I'm going to start with Charlotte, if that's okay. You got to unmute, my love. Unmute, Charlotte. Charlotte, we can't hear you. You're muted.
No, I'm muted. I'm unmuted. I always do this. I think it's just my thing. Hi everyone, my name is Charlotte. I am a natural hair and skincare specialist, also an intuitive guidance coach. You can find me on Instagram via Natural Woman Hair and Skincare and Thick Fitness Coaching. Thank you for tuning in today and hearing what we've got to say.
Is there anything that you are like looking forward to hearing about in this topic, yes, or not looking forward to?
It's not so much not looking forward to, but I'm really interested to explore this link, this bridge between the two, because it's given me a different way of thinking about things, and it's also allowing me to open up my awareness. Quite frankly, I've always known that there's a link, but I've never delved deep enough into it. So I'm really looking forward to exploring this today.
Oh, Marvina.
Can I pass to Alfie first? That's not going to work then. Okay. I'm looking forward to, my name is Marvina Newton, Chief Executive of Angel of Youth, co-founder of Black Lives Matter Leeds, and also founder of United for Black Lives, supporting a lot of the Black Lives Matter groups across the UK. I'm an associate lecturer, so I teach youth and community work with Leeds Beckett. But what I look forward to is for more allies to be found through this conversation. Because the connection in my mind has already been made to that there is an intersectional link to this whole climate change and racial justice. In my mind, as clear as day. I think what I want to get out of this is why is green spaces so white? That's it. I want us to be able to have an honest dialogue on why do they think this is only a white issue? And I just needed to, and in a way I'm trying to also say to you, whoever's watching this, can you just be my ally? It's not that hard. I just want you to be an ally. I want you to act, listen, learn, and yield your power. That's all. That's all I want you to do. And I'll pass it to whoever Hester wants to pass it to.
Oh, well, who's ready? Alfie. We're just saying hello and something we might be looking forward to or not looking forward to in this conversation.
My name is Alfie. I'm part of XR. I do various things. I have a little site called Eco Blacks on Instagram, if you'd like to follow, which talks really about the climate crisis to do with Black African people and the West Indies, really. What am I hoping for here? You know, if there's any brothers and sisters watching that they want to get involved in the climate crisis, because it affects our community disproportionately higher than it does the white community. And even though we are in a fortunate place, as in we are in the North world, we have to use our privilege. And even Black people in this part of the world, we have privilege in comparison to our brothers and sisters in the South world, that we must do our utmost for them on their behalf. In many cases where they cannot protest because the regimes that they live under are not like, I mean, Britain's a pain in the arse, but you can protest. No one's going to be dead and disappeared into a jail. So I encourage my brothers and sisters to join in this journey. And the other thing I'm hoping to get out of this is that we talk about what constitutes, you know, the climate crisis and racism are almost the same. How it operates, what powers and levers are used to contain it, to minimize and devalue. It's exactly the same levers, but what I want the connection to be made of how the environmental, the climate crisis, if you add race on top, how much worse it is for our brothers and sisters in this country, let alone the rest of the world, to just understand how that intersectionality really makes a play on what's going on here. So yeah, plus I'm really looking forward to eating my challah while this is all going on, because I'm being very bad, and look how much bread I've got, and there's going to be lashings of butter on that. Oh, margarine, because I'm vegan. Let's silence that.
Alison, would you like to say hi?
Yeah, thanks, Esther. So my name is Alison Teal, and I'm a Green Party councillor on Sheffield City Council. I'm also a co-founder of the recently recent group called Greens Can, which is Green Climate Activist Network. Because we want to get far more involved in direct action and making a lot more noise about what's going on, and try and make a difference. And that includes obviously addressing the question of race too, which we're all very much agreed on. And I'm here because I'm looking forward to sharing ideas and hearing other perspectives.
Thank you so much for coming, Alison. Because also we're doing this every other weekend, but every other Friday. But what's apparent to me, sorry, my baby's crying, is that I've always been the one that's sort of doing this, and that's a position of power, and I feel really uncomfortable actually. And I've had meltdowns about it. And one day I called Charlotte, and I was like, it's not my place. And Charlotte was like, no, it's okay. And figuring out like what to do with my voice, and because sometimes I don't want to speak or have a voice, and like Marvina's teaching me, everyone's teaching me basically. It's an ongoing daily thing. So when I met Alison, I was wondering if I could come back to you. We were at this this kind of conference online, and me and Alison had this chat, and then could you talk about that moment actually, Alison?
Yeah. So it was really impactful, and it's potentially like a really, really big moment in my life, because it was a conference on transformational adaptation, and Hester, we broke out into a small group. There's probably about 4 or 5 of us. And it came to Hester's turn to respond. Can't even remember what it was specifically. It wasn't about race, but Hester's response was, "Look at us. You know, we're all white. You know, what's going on with this? You know, there are families in South London who can't afford to, don't have the means to feed their children tomorrow. How can we possibly expect them to be able to focus on protesting on the climate crisis?" And she said it. She was you were angry. I could see that you were angry. You're really emotional. You're just about in tears, and it just really hit me. And I just reflected and thought, oh my God, if I was in that situation, how, I realized how privileged I was, not only to be there that day, but also to be involved in protest in the first place. And it was just really emotional. I wanted to cry. It really touched me. You really touched me, because you came at me on a really emotional level. And before that, you can look at statistics, and you can see 24 million people were displaced, in the last year because of environmental problems, because of flooding and things like that in Bangladesh and other places. And this stuff, but you don't necessarily feel an empathy with it in terms of imagining, putting yourself in those people's shoes. And so that's something that Hester gave to me. She put me in their shoes, and I really felt it. And then I felt, oh my God, I'm complicit. I've got to do something. And so I started to do some research, and I wrote the article for Green World. And that really brought it home to me then, the more I learned about it, because I don't know if people are aware, but so the Slavery Act came in 1807, but it didn't really make much difference until in 1833, they had another Slavery Act to abolish slavery. And the only reason they managed to get it through Parliament was that they paid off compensation to slave owners. It's just, mind-blowing. And they paid the current equivalent amount of money, 2.4 billion, to compensate slave owners for the loss of their business, which just makes me want to vomit. It's just absolutely outrageous. And not only that, the last slave owner was paid, because they did it over nearly a 200-year period, in 2015. So they were still compensating slave owners in very recent history. And then you look and you say, well, how much did they pay slaves for the loss of their land, or their loss of their lives, or the loss of their liberty? 0. And that makes me really angry, because I can't bear the injustice of that, and I can't begin to imagine what it's like to be a Black person and know this stuff and not feel really angry all the time. It's just appalling. I'm so deeply ashamed. I'm so deeply ashamed of Britain. I think we're a disgusting, disgusting race. Just awful.
See, Alison, I already knew you were going to be an ally before you started talking. Charlotte, was I right? Was I right? I didn't even know who she was, first of all.
Yes, she was.
To be honest to you, this fact about people, there are loads of people that do not know that slave owners were still paid to 2015. Loads of people don't know this fact. But also, loads of people don't understand what the impact to the global South slavery did, being colonized did. It's like you going to the pot and taking the best part of the food and leaving the burnt bottom bit for everyone else to fight over. They didn't call it Scramble for Africa for no reason. They had a summit. They planned this. It was literally an act of destroying what we call Africa now. But that being said, what I love about what Alison has said there and what Hester has done. Hester, when I spoke earlier on about you and said, allies are made, they're not born. They are made through empathic relationships, right? As like, I can't tell you about the fact that you were in a space where you saw there were only white people and you chose to challenge. Why are we just like this? And that's what I need other people to do. When you are in a space and you look around and you can't see the other, then you need to use your privilege to ask those questions and do something. When you're talking about climate change, can I get you to start thinking, who's going to get hit the most about this? It's going to be those in the global South. It's going to be the poor. It's going to be the disadvantaged. And let's say it, I like what Alfie said about, do not get twisted just because we're here. I know I'm a privileged Black woman, point blank. I know that also, when I talk about Africa, I need people to also change their mindset. I'm not talking about flies on children's faces because Africa is booming. But Africa is still recovering and hemorrhaging from some of the works that has been done to us as a country, as a continent. So that being said, I'm going to leave it to other people like Charlotte to come in, because when I say climate change, actually, Charlotte, what comes into your mind? That might be a good question. What comes into our mind as Black people when we think about climate change?
The first thing I think about when I think about climate change is the ozone layer and things like that, like the weather and things like that. And then when you go into it, because that's all that's presented to us here, that's what's the most important thing. It's like, what's it going to be like for us here? What's this place is going to be really bad, but they do not focus on what's already going to have happened to the people that live in Africa, Jamaica, our people. That's already have happened. So they don't talk about that. That's completely bypassed, because the problem begins when it reaches here, in a sense. So that's when the problem becomes real. And it's so prevalent. You know, Alison, I'm not going to go away from that question, but Alison, when you said about 2015, that the last repetitions was paid in 2015, I knew it. But when you said it, it's like it really hit my mindset as to what you've just said. And then it made me think, well, really, all the government is doing is showing how much they still endorse slavery, but it's changed. You know, the wording's different. We're going to make it a little bit more palatable for you in the British way that we do. You know, that's what we're going to do. And for me, it's this feeling that I know that our people have always felt they're not valued here. And I'm not talking about you, Alison, and you, Hester. I'm not talking about you as allies. Your type of spirit is in. We need you, okay? We need you. You're not going anywhere. But there is an energy that speaks before it even enters the room. You feel it, and then as it walks through, as much as they may smile and be polite, you know that you're not of value in this space unless you walk, talk, and do in a way that is mirroring and acceptable to them. And I've had enough. I say this every week, every time we have these meetings. I've had enough. And I sit and I think what Marvina just said about us being privileged Black women, I agree with you. I'm aware of it. I'm so aware of it. You cannot not feel it. So then when you think about the implications of what it means and what they're actually showing, what will happen to this world, they're not even showing that at the point that it probably affects us here in England and the West, so to speak, Africa's probably gone. Jamaica, West Indies, everywhere. There's hardly anything there, which shows, again, surplus to requirements. So I'm going to explain to organisations such as XR and with that type of focus, the planet is immeasurable. I'm not talking about that. We kind of are, but if you don't value us as people and the whole world, and it's home for everybody, you're going to remain white. That's the truth of the matter. In my vision, that's how I see it, and there has to be change.
Sorry, I know Alfie's going to come on this, but do you know another thing when you were talking? How many ads have you seen for climate change that you've seen Black people?
None.
Oh, wait.
None.
How many times do you hear when they're talking about, I hear about Indigenous people, and I see how, you know, you get someone that would then paint their face and, you know, but it's still like, wow, Indigenous people. But like,
but listen, this whole, and
wow.
I'm going to take it even further to say, respectfully, my Indigenous brothers and sisters all over the world, I believe that what they show is the more palatable. And this is not my words, but the more palatable, such as they are mixed with them. It's like, oh, we can handle this. But if I was to show the real, if I was to show the truth, it's not important. But what we will show you is the diluted version. And I say it so freely as a mixed race woman, and I have to stress that because I know I'm peaceful with who I am and I know myself. But they always want, you're only just okay if you're mixed with us a little bit. So if we see us, as in us in you, then it matters.
Colorism 101. And
Thank
what you just
you.
done there is you've identified your light skin privilege. Another thing, because we know the media don't show people like me and Alfie that much though. And if they show us, seen as, you know, sassy, you know, loud, you know, bitchy, you know, those kind of words.
Like.
You know what she's
Yes.
like? Well, you're more palatable. Even this is political.
Absolutely.
So Alfie, I actually want to know what you think about this. Like, as a climate justice superhero, you are, you know, put that cape on and talk to her.
There's a lot to unpack, and I probably can't pick every subject that's just been broached. But number one, I want more Black people involved in the climate crisis, full stop, because the places that go immediately are island nations, are the nations that are most under threat. Yes. So the West Indies, Philippines, places, you know, the islands off of Australia, New Zealand, that sort of thing. They're the countries that go first. I think you're right that the way the media portrays what the heck is going on is very much from a European perspective. So they're saying, oh, it's going to get warmer. That means we get the south of France in Britain. There's no connection to if this country becomes the south of France in weather. What does that mean for a country that's already hot? It means that it's unlivable. That's what happens. It means you can't grow your crops. There's going to be issues with water. The weather patterns are changing. So that's another thing. I'm going to flip to Alison for just a moment, because when you talk about slave owners being paid for what they did to my ancestors, and they trafficked doctors, scientists, engineers. These were not just, they didn't traffic slaves. I often hear that. You didn't traffic slave, you trafficked people with skills. And thankfully they had enough skills to survive what happened to them. But like, this is all based in extractivism. That, the colonial powers, Europe, it's not just Britain. Britain is one of the best at being an empire, unfortunately, but it's also about France, Germany, Spain, Portugal. We could continue with the list. And though they were forced to step away from slavery, they still carried it on in a more palatable way through colonialism, neo-colonialism that we have now. We have the recent situation in Bolivia where their whole democracy was taken away, though they had voted for a socialist government, but because of, I don't know if you're aware, they have very high minerals that are considered very valuable within the green technology space. And basically, they basically, well, the Americans and a few other countries probably joined together and destabilized the country so that and I forget the name of the president now, it'll come to me. As soon as this program is over, they basically delegitimized him and his government, and they got a right-wing government, which has now been reversed, thankfully. They've gone back to their socialist principles. But, the thing about Europeans and these top 1% in the world, they have not learned their lesson. We must be climate activists, as far as I'm concerned, as Black people. And that does mean there's a possibility we could get arrested. There's no doubt. I joined XR and I purposely became a drummer because I thought it was the least likely thing to get arrested. I purposely did that, and it worked. I don't know how long it'll work for, but it works at the moment. But understand clearly, if you are a person of color in this country, you have privilege, and you must show that privilege in the right way to protect your brothers and sisters in the South world, because they are depending on us. Don't get me wrong, they're doing their own thing as well, but we must highlight it here. We cannot abdicate our obligations to our future generations and to our brothers and sisters in the South world. The slogan for the West Indies is 1.5 to survive. We're going to exceed that. We are going to exceed that. That means the West Indies, the frequencies of hurricanes will increase. The intensities of those hurricanes will increase. The problem in the West Indies at the moment is if one part of the, say the Lower Antilles has got a hurricane, it means nobody visits the rest of the islands on holiday because they think the hurricane goes from the Lesser to the Upper Antilles. So they then suffer from economic damage. And then you add on to that, they're taking loans to exceed their parameters of safety from their last hurricane. They're having to borrow that money at a stupid interest rate. They haven't paid off the last one, and they're having to pay another one. And in the particular instance of Grenada, where my family come from, nutmeg takes 4 to 5 years to mature. So as soon as the hurricane hits it, it's not something that can be easily replaced. I mean, I know they're diversifying now, but these are the problems. Extractivism is our biggest problem, and neocolonialism is our biggest problem. And we must fight that. And I get everyone's, it is scary. I don't want to get arrested. I know that, at the age of 50, if I get arrested, that's basically me done in the employment area. I won't be able to do anything apart from McDonald's or Co-op or something like that, because they won't get further than you got arrested. You won't get a discussion about it. So I do totally understand why Black people are nervous. But I say it again, we have an obligation to ourselves South World brothers and sisters. We have an obligation to the countries that our parents come from, let alone the world. And to remember, we have indigenous Black people of our own. Nigeria, you know, it's various indigenous Black communities that are getting completely ripped apart. And I've forgotten his name now. I want to say his name, because the Ogoni 9 action was just the other day, and I've forgotten the name of the people. And then it's Ken something. It's gone. Ken. Oh, it'll come at the end of the show when the lights are off. But the Ogoni 9 are indigenous Black people who are losing their land. They were also, the oil spilled in their land, complete mess. They can't live off it. Poisoned water, poisoned land. This is all about colonialism. And we must step up. I understand people are scared, but we must step up as Black people, because the only people who are going to save us is us. I'm telling you that now. We cannot wait for other people to save us. It's us who has to save us. Yeah, sorry. I've gone on too long, but let me just.
No, Alfie, I'm just coming. I'm playing devil advocate now. So we're privileged Black people now. We know that we need to create this change that we need to see in our community. Please tell me, where do we go to, and what white people are our allies? Where are the Black allies?
It's right. Where do you go to?
So now you've said this to me. You've told me as a Black person. I've listened to this, and I'm thinking, all right, this is important. Yeah,
there are different ways of allyship, and at the moment, the most important thing is to activate us as Black people. So. You know me, I've got plans. I haven't got them sorted yet, but I've got plans. But I would like us to be talking to our churches. I would be liking us to talk to our mosques. I would love to talk to some of the elders from there's various Caribbean Commonwealth clubs. They're all over the place. There's some in Liverpool, Manchester, London. I would like us to start from that point. Where we educate ourselves to understand what the climate crisis means for our countries. That's where I would start first. Then we can move on to other things. That's where I like that.
So that follows the way I work. So you're talking about educate, and then the next bit is to unite our views, and then let's heal as well in one way or another. So those 3 points, let's go that way. But then if we educate ourselves, where do we go to get resources to let us know about what to do?
I think it depends on what you want to do, because the reason why I had a light bulb moment over 2.5 years ago was because I went to a lecture by Sir David King, who is the biggest climate scientist who actually helped pull together the Paris Accord agreement. I think he did. So that was my way in. I think the most important thing is there is a way in for people, whether it's going down that more academic route where they just sit there and show you loads of graphs and trends and what the difference between that there and whatever. So you've got that route. Then I would like to see routes which just talk about the countries you come from, like Grenada. Unfortunately, because of the tourist industry, they're pulling out a lot of the mangroves, which would secure the soil and make them more hurricane proof, if you want to say that, and guard them from sea rise, like large sea rise levels. So it's getting to know the country that you come from, finding out from the scientists there what's happening on the ground. So that's another way in. And then lastly, and this is the where I am, is being an activist. I go to Extinction Rebellion gigs, and I get interviewed by newspapers occasionally, online sites, and I just talk about the fact that I'm here because of Grenada, and I want it to survive, and that's why I'm out here protesting. And I protest in various ways. Sometimes it's online, sometimes it's going out in a rebellion. The Walk of Shame, which I happened to attend, was one of the best actions I've seen, as in putting forward what's happening to the Black community around the world, because they would the actual action was about modern and present day slavery as well as historical slavery. So the action was held in the City of London, and the action involved going around to some of the biggest I don't know how to put it nicely. There is no nice way. They're just nasty guys. These companies are not good. They weren't started in a good fashion, and they haven't really changed their ways. So we've visited companies like BlackRock, We visited Lloyd's, which we all know we all know the history of Lloyd's when it comes towards the enslavement of my ancestors. We visited Aviva, and you know, that was a powerful action for me, a really powerful action, and probably the most amount of BIPOC people, because there was a lot of black folks, but it was a BIPOC event that I've never seen so many in an Extinction Rebellion event. And I believe it's calling a spade a spade. That action was calling a spade a spade, and it was called the Walk of Shame for a reason. These people are shameful. They're shameful for their past. They're shameful for their present. And they're so shameful, they should be that ashamed that they want to change their future. And we have to apply that pressure to make sure that happens.
No, thank you for that. I think I'm going to pass to Alison, but before I do, I just want to make this clear. Even that position that you've spoken about is also a privileged Black person's position of knowledge and power and privilege. We need to be able to know that. We know a lot of our Black communities don't have access to this information, to know the implication. So I'm still going to turn it again on its head. I need for white people to yield power and make space. I need them to make space for these conversations to happen. So when Black people start talking about this, and Charlotte's going to come in after Alison, if that's okay. If they do that, that means when Black people start having these conversations, you listen. That means when we tell you exactly what's happening in our countries, you learn from it. And that's when we then tell you to create places. We're not even asking you for space on your table. We're saying that, don't worry, give us the resources. We'll build our own tables and we'll have our own conversations, because we're realizing that you don't want to talk about us. So we're having to create these conversations by ourselves. But what I do not want us to do is put this label back on Black people. Sorry. I am not putting this label back on Black people alone to take care of this, because we're not instrumental in creating some of these problems that we're seeing in the climate. No, we're not. That's the truth. That's the truth, and that's the truth I need them to hear and deal with. Just the same way we didn't create racism, so we should not be the ones trying to have this conversation by ourselves. Yes, we can talk as our community, but the truth of the matter is that the people that were involved in creating most of these problems and taking and fracking and breaking the soils up to get gas out of it for purposes only known to them. So now I need them to be able to create spaces and make sure they become allies. That's how I will leave it for that. And Alison, I don't know what you feel about that kind of challenge being put back to you, but what would you do? Again, how would you be the best ally to this conversation? And what do you think, using your platform, that you can do to facilitate more conversations around racial justice linked to climate?
Yeah, thanks, Marvina. So what I'm thinking is that we need to go back to the roots of this issue, which is British colonialism and imperialism, so the expansion and colonization throughout much of the global south, and essentially pillaging and, you know, as Alfie said, extracting all the wealth and resources that we possibly could out of other nations for a very tiny elite group of people in this country to get ridiculously rich. And that wealth has multiplied and continued, and so a lot of really wealthy people today are still living off the backs of your ancestors. And so for me, it's about, okay, how do we go about showing that this exploitation is not only historical, but it's actually also continuing, as you've mentioned, several of you said about the continuing exploitation in lots of other countries. And so what do we do? And I was thinking about, well, it would be really good to have some sort of campaign that really highlights that and really helps people understand those connections between racism and historical exploitation and current exploitation. Not only that, there's actually a way to build some solidarity perhaps with white working class people who are very much the bottom of the pile. And so there is so much poverty and the extreme gaps in our society, as I was saying before, about how hierarchical it is, how class-riven it is. white people were also very much disenfranchised and lost their land. You might know about the enclosures movement, happened over a couple of centuries, but essentially white people were just, taken away, the land was taken away from them, the landowners enclosed it, and the poor people were sent to work in the cities, and that's how they created the fodder for the Industrial Revolution. And so it's all sort of entwined this, essentially we've got a very small group of people who exploit the majority of the world's land and the majority of the world's people. And so we have a real foundation there for solidarity, which is very much about land rights, if you like, and the theft of all our land, be it overseas or here. And so I'd really like to see, a campaign that we work on that's about, we want it back. We want it back. And not only that, what about some compensation for people who were enslaved? This is something that I don't know that there's been a campaign about that before, but I think that it's a campaign that's definitely reached its time, and it's completely bound up with climate crisis, and it's all this exploitation of nature and people that's led us to a climate crisis in the first place. So for me, what we do is we follow the money. Yeah, and you follow the money and you'll find the culprits, and they're the people that we need to engage. They're the people we need to get angry with.
No, sorry, I'm not jumping into this. There's ex-IISN who are doing the Truth Commission, and they're doing the reparation conversation, reparation rebellion. You've also got you've got some of the Pan-African movements having the same conversation. Conversation happened in Bristol, and different key partners. Again, these are climate activists. You've got Esther, Kofi, there's some other people there. You've got Shidi, you've got these amazing kind of individuals. But what I'm loving from you, Alison, at that moment is almost taking that responsibility and looking at the fact that Black people and poor white people are going to suffer. So this is why we need to unite. We need to be united in this conversation. But mine is that if white people don't even see that they can include us in the conversation in the first place, then that's the problem. So it's important to see how platforms like yours and platforms like Hester's using now. For the white people listening to you right now, please speak to them. They're white people. Please listen to your fellow sister. She's talking to you. And it's not me speaking to you. This is also you're in West Yorkshire. Let's build solidarity. And I know this is going to sound like I live in Leeds, yeah. I'm a Yorkshire lass now, or my kids would say they are. But one thing I would say is that I'm asking for allies. So find me Majestic Marvina on Instagram. And the truth of the matter is that I don't care whether you're rich or poor. I just need to know that you're there, willing to stand in solidarity. I need you to just be able to say, you're my Black ally. That's it. And I need you to show me proven work. I don't want performative activism. I don't want the squares in Black Lives Matter hashtag. I need you to try that. So Alison, please speak to your people who hopefully will become my people, who would then definitely work together and would tackle this. What would you say are the practical steps from your point of view as a councillor, as someone in the climate justice movement?
Yeah, campaigning together, I think, and it's very tricky, isn't it? I mean, things like Black Lives Matter and Stand Up to Racism and stuff, I think that really, obviously, it needs to be led by Black people. But of course, yeah, I'm ready to stand behind you. Yeah.
Yeah, Alfie wants to.
I just wanted to pile on, Alison, while you're taking this thing on. I just feel like piling it on, and I'm talking about the areas that Black people live in, and poorer people, I would have to say, and probably some marginalized people generally. The conditions of where they're living, what is allowed to be planned next to like incinerators. Why is it okay that we have the busiest roads near to our estates where we live, so the air quality is again made worse? Why is it, and we can go a little bit wider, because I think the environment is not only about what physically happens to us as Black people, but what happens to us mentally. Is that, we all know that when you spend time in the countryside or you spend time with any kind of nature, it's a very, very healing moment. But in most areas where Black people live, there are no trees. There are no decent parks. Obviously, if you get on a bike, probably there is. But if you compare that to a richer neighborhood in London, there's trees just outside of their houses, let alone where the nearest park is. There's often little areas they can go and play in. And, you know, there's kind of science that's being proved at the moment that humans need that interaction with the environment, with green spaces, with trees, bushes, leaves, grass, for our mental well-being. So what I'm looking for as well is that, you know, somehow you can deal with planning, because obviously planning is there seems to be no way of safeguarding green spaces in poorer neighborhoods. Planning when you're driving out now, which is happening in Brixton and to a certain degree, and other areas around London, Tottenham as well, they're trying to get people to move out of those areas, but because they want to basically swap them with richer people and then put the shops in to get the money out of them and whatever. So, you know, this is not just about environmental, this is about saving Black people generally, and we are not doing well. Our health outcomes, not well. Education outcomes, not well, because we're not included in the curriculum. You know, this is, you know, I know we're talking about the environment, but I want to say that we are part of the environment and we are not thriving. We are not thriving. So therefore, it is the duty of white people to understand that we are your brothers and sisters, and you should make sure our environment is as good as yours, if not better, because, like, you know, that's another thing. But that, you know, I really wanted to pile that on, because it's not just about let's save the West Indies. I want that. I want us to save Africa, but also to start doing that in your own backyard. And then you can go, and then we can hopefully at the same time deal with the other places too.
I think,
so yeah,
I
just
think
piling it on, just in keeping it real, Alison. So
I know Marvina is waiting to speak, but it's been planned. It's been planned. It's no coincidence. It's no accident. It's all planned that way. We know that. And what I learned this week was that conservationism was never for the poor, the working class. It was always for the rich. It was for the rich to go hunt, for the rich to go take nice walks. It was never for the common people in all the parks in London. What year was it? There was a king that finally made those parks public. But before that, you'd go from factory to your hovel, you know, your shit 1-bedroom house where there's 9 of you sleeping in there. Like, the environmental movement was not created by do-gooding people. It was created by who was the president in America? He went to Africa and he was called a conservationist because he just shot loads of animals. But that was the same time that they were allowing people in Africa to still be commodified. It was always about that, and I didn't understand what Europeans were until I read this book, Nathaniel's Nutmeg. I spoke to Alfie about it, which was about nutmeg and pepper, the spice trade, the sugar trade, and how the Europeans, it was just the race to sail around the world, kill whoever they found, and took whatever they found growing there, and maybe it was going to make them rich. And, you know, like East Indies, West Indies, the West India Trading Company, East India Trading Company, you never learn any of it at school. The only place I actually learned something was Docklands Museum, because they've got an exhibition on British slavery. I never knew about the slavery triangle was Britain, what's now Nigeria, Caribbean, Britain, because we didn't get taught it. And there's another person, Leela, who's not here tonight, but her school is Black British history. So what I actually hate about environmentalists
Hester, can I just
is that
interject?
they're racists.
Sorry, Hester mentioned Leela. Please check out Black British Studies via Instagram, and she also has a website which I think is blackbritishstudies.com or .co.uk. Look, check both. But seriously, allies, you need to, those that are willing, you need to educate yourself. There is material out there. Now, the beautiful Leela, she gives free material. And I am only advocating for those who are on benefits and really cannot afford it to use the free material. Those of you that can pay. It is worth it. Pay, invest, She is fantastic. She has an amazing way of delivering the truth in a way that's going to make you a little uncomfortable, but you're going to hear it. So I really, really encourage you that you check out Leela via Black British Studies. And I'm just thinking about what I've actually heard and the value. I know I mentioned this a little earlier on, but the value that is placed on Black lives is literally near to nothing, if not that. And you allies, you need to understand that. It is going to be uncomfortable. You may question it and say, but it wasn't me. I'm not racist. I didn't this, I did that. You're racist if you think that way. And if you don't care enough to educate yourself and your household, you are part of the problem. Now, this whole pushing for, caring about the climate, but not recognizing our brothers and sisters back home. And yes, here as well, because we are at a point where we can speak freely and discuss these matters. If we don't care enough about about our brothers and sisters back home, you will be going down the same road. Ask yourself this question. What is it that makes you so uncomfortable? What is it? There is something there, and then address it, and then talk among yourselves, because you can't say you care about the climate if you do not care about all the beautiful people on the climate, about us as a whole. And I really want to encourage, okay, this is something a little bit different, but it is to do with what we're talking about. So it's really important that we understand the struggle of the Black person is very, very different. If you do not have any advantages that white people have and that people like me can have, their struggle is very serious. We need you to recognize it. Mixed race people, brown people, I'm addressing you too. You need to really recognize what's going on here. And we need you to come together with us to support our Black people that are all around the world, our brothers and sisters. We need to show that we care, because if we can we feel it when it's fake. And if you don't mean it, there is not going to be the response that benefits us all as a whole, because it won't just be our Black brothers and sisters perishing. It'll be all of you. It'll be all of us. It's all or nothing. And if you cannot see your reflection in the beautiful Marvina, in the beautiful Alfie, in the beautiful Hester, and me, and Alison, then you cannot see yourself and there's no future for you. It's like you're dead inside already. Allies, man, come on. Sorry. No, I'm not actually. No, I'm not.
I think, no. No, you're not sorry. So
I'm not sorry.
About this.
No, we're not.
And I'm going to just speak about, no, we're not. I got involved in climate justice for one reason. I feel like we've destroyed our world and we've destroyed this earth, and I've got two beautiful kids, and I just want them to be able to have children and live in a world that they don't have to clean up the mess that we created. And then in the process of me trying to learn about this mess that we created, I realized that it's not like I'm trying to pass the buck, but I didn't do that much in it. I didn't get to. In fact, the more I kept searching, I kept seeing the disparity, and I kept seeing the destruction of land and property and people like cattle just being used, and how centuries and legacies were built on my ancestors. And at first I got angry. I went through the 5 stages of grief. I'm not gonna lie to you. And then I came at the other end and I just felt, I just want to see change. And the change has to happen by me trying to educate some people. But then I realized they've got this information, like Charlotte said, they can educate themselves. But what also I've decided to do is that some people need you to educate them. So I'm having to sit in that space. And let me explain, it is draining, but I do it anyway. You know why? Because I think about my children. It's a selfish angle. My children's children's children. That's it. That's my angle. That's my hidden agenda. The hidden agenda I have, guys, and you've caught me, is that my children and your children don't deserve the world we've created. That's it. They don't. We've all messed it up. We've all done. And I take some responsibility. I could have done better, but now I've recognized and I'm trying to do better. But what I'm saying, and I know when I say it to my allies, it's like me asking you out on a date. It is literally like me asking you out on a date. You don't know me, I don't know you. You don't know what I'm gonna do. But I promise you, if we unite, I promise you it will be the best relationship ever. It will be built on something so strong and phenomenal. Imagine an equitable society. Just imagine, 1 second, close your eyes. Imagine an equitable society where the air you breathe is so fresh. Imagine the streams that have no pollutions in it, and where we can see that we reverse the damage to the environment. Now imagine just being able to see the stars at night. Can you imagine that? Just imagine that beauty. Imagine that we have temperatures that drop better to what they're meant to, and that we know the ozone layer is healing. I know you can't imagine that, but just give me a second and just imagine. We can actually fix it. So all I'm saying, close your eyes and think about the most picturesque view in your mind, and know that you can create that. Oh, that's powerful. Doesn't that make you feel good? So why don't you want to go on a date with me and be my ally? Come on, let's just change the world together. No more beefing. It's not about black or white. It's about you just seeing me first, though, because I have to matter to you. Once you make sure you educate yourself and see why I matter to you, we've got this. And that means you matter to me. That means, like, I want to cry about this because I'm asking you to just see me. Shit, how deep is that? And recognize that we're in this together. I'm not fighting you. I'm not trying to make you feel white guilt. White guilt means nothing, and white tears means nothing if we don't have actions that follow it. So please, let's just do something together, okay? Majestic Marvina. And I want to say thank you so much to allies like Alison, allies like Hester, who are going to use their voices to constantly facilitate conversation like this. To the black and brown, ask people another thing, ask people whether they prefer being called black. That's the last thing I'll leave you. Ask them if they want to be called black with a capital B, or they want to be called African, just the same way you ask people their pronoun, okay? It's a nice thing to do. Never assume, never assume. Hester, I'll leave it to you now.
I find it really hard to see that future, Marvina.
I know. If we keep doing this, let me tell you, if we keep doing this, like, how selfish can you be to not see our kids and just say they deserve better? Like, please.
Because it's too hard to look at. It's too hard to come out of the denial, which is why I don't see the action, because people are not going to lift their denial. I mean, I have hope. Of course I do, because I have hope, but I also, I'm afraid of the hope, and I feel like I have to, I don't know, I struggle, Marvina.
I know you're not spiritual, but there's something I do. And this is I know you're
need
not.
to do more. I know. I'm just
I
agnostic.
know.
I didn't decide, but I'm gonna.
So I'm not gonna preach God. I'm not gonna talk about Christianity or Islam. I'm gonna just speak about the universe, like totally just speak in that universal way. Whatever the mind thinks, so shall it be. So in my mind is like, when I think about fate, it's something not seen or heard. You just know it exists. Do you understand what I mean? So I can manifest whatever I need to manifest if I put some actions to it. So I'm putting that intention into the vibration of everything I do. So anytime I speak to someone, I speak that favor into, you're going to be my ally and you're going to make this world better. It's not even that choice now, because guess what? Even when you hate me, you're still going to love me. Because in the way of your hate, you're going to still align to the purpose of this earth, point blank. And I don't need to try and figure out. If you notice, when your kids ask you to do stuff, they will say, Mommy, I need this. And they just float her away, not caring how you're going to get it done, right? That's the universe. So they don't ask you how it's going to be done. They don't even try and figure out, like, you know what? I've asked Mommy for this shoe, but you know what? I'm going to help Mommy, scrimple into all the corners of the house to get the coins. No, they don't. What they do is that they believe that Mommy will make it happen. Your son only needs to cry. Your son needs to cry, and you know already that I need to feed him. He does not need to worry about it at all. So when this is not about Buddha, and just think, the universe, the earth is listening to us. Like a child, the earth knows we've hurt it. We've taken the piss with it. In fact, we are those children that have abused it so much that we don't even pay homage to it. So now we're saying, Mommy, we're sorry. Mother Nature, we're sorry. Like, we messed up. But what we're going to do, we're going to try and fix it. So we don't know how we're going to fix it, but what we're going to try and do is do what we need to do. So when we leave this earth, the legacy is that I did all the shit I needed to do to fix it. So I can know that when I'm meeting Mother Nature and I'm buried in that soil, because I don't want a casket, I literally want to be a pod in the ground, and that's it. And come out as a tree. I know people don't get it. Dying matters. Let's talk about that one day. But yeah, let's just talk about it. But I just said, let me pass it to Alfie, and I'll leave it at that. But Hester, we can work on this. I can see the future with you.
It's one of the things I've always struggled with XR about, and I am totally an XR. I understand clearly. I am totally an XR. Yeah, I love you, Hester. Please don't slap me. Because me and you are mates. You know the score. But this doom and gloom about trying to save our world, I've always struggled with it. I've struggled with it because as Black people, we have suffered. We have suffered. And we've always found a song or poetry or a dance, something that makes us want to keep going, keep up the fight. It's not something I see a lot. I mean, and I'm probably going to sound quite general, but there's this thing about being totally miserable because the world's going, it might be going up the Swanee, but there's no, I want to say two things. One is that there's a famous saying that it is not your job to complete the task, but neither is it your job to ignore the problem. So there's that saying that comes to mind. And then this other saying, which is from a cacique that I know, who was saying it to, I was in the meeting, he was saying it to his people. The art of, and this is what I think a climate activist really is, the art of a warrior is a balance, is to balance the wonder of being alive with the terror of being alive. And it's finding that middle ground of where you are not not so scared you are frozen so you can't do action, but then also to realize the privilege that you have. This is a privileged time. We have the opportunity somehow to be part of the journey that saves this planet. We're not going to end it. We'll be dead and buried you know, if we do this right. And there is a joy in that, and we must dance with it. And it's a joy, and it's a dance that's happy and sad and in awe and scared and euphoric. I mean, you know, there's so many things, but remember, it's a balance. You have to be at that balance where you're scared enough to do something, but not too scared that it makes you incapable of doing anything. And there's a joy in that. And you have to, it's a bit like, what was it? Get uncomfortable, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's what it is if you're dealing with the climate crisis. That's what it is when you're dealing with the fact that you're a bit of a racist and you need to sort it out. Get uncomfortable and sort it out, mate. You know, that's
a bit of a racist.
Same thing.
Everyone's got racism, own it. Let's do a final. Alison, you first, just our roundups. I'm so sorry, I lost track of time. I always do this.
No worries. I just want to thank you for inviting me to be a part of this, Hester, and I want to thank everyone else for all the amazing stuff that you've said. And I love this idea of, oh, mummy, we're sorry. That was just brilliant. And also the idea that I don't have the answers, I can't be the solution, but I can recognize the problem and do whatever I can to help make it better. And I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks very much. Thank you.
And pass it on, or everyone just, I don't know. Charlotte, we didn't hear for a while.
Yeah, Charlotte. Yes, Charlotte. Sorry.
We've ended this where I have a lot more information and clarity on what I thought. Look, guys, we have to love one another. We have to love one another. You know, I was thinking about what you said about your children, Marvina. And I was thinking about what you would do, what you wouldn't do. What wouldn't you do for your children, even as they're grown? There's nothing, you drop everything. And even when your children have been really, really naughty, right, or done something they shouldn't do, you're still going to pick them up and embrace them, right? You're not going to stop loving them. You're not going to not want to give them everything and nurture and look after them. And I feel like if we humbled ourselves and put down our wants in the replacement for our needs, we have everything we need. We've always had everything we need. We do not need any more gadgets, things, stuff, phones, books, cars, planes, whatever. We don't. How about we be appreciative of it, and remember that, you know, I said this from the beginning, unless Black lives really, really matter, no life could ever matter. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I've got to stop saying that. Marvina, you're going to help me. Right.
Stop saying sorry.
The British, it's going. It's going. But it's the truth. You know, unless Black lives matter, no life, not one, is important. That's my final thought. My name is Charlotte. I am an intuitive guidance coach. I am willing to do the work to support the cause, because our children are important and my grandchildren are important and your grandchildren are important. Let's go. Alfie, over to you.
I suppose if I had to end, it would be like saying, if you want to address the climate crisis, the first thing you do is join Black Lives Matter. That's the first thing you do. And the reason why you do that is because if you respect the Black man, respect the Black woman's history, the Black people's culture, their music, you will start to love them. You will start to love them like they are part of your own family, right? And then once we get to that point, it's like, you know what, we shouldn't be trashing our Black brothers and sisters' land like that. We shouldn't be trashing that. We should cherish that. Oh, what? We're trying to get rid of their language and replace it with a European one. No, we shouldn't do that. They should have, you know, you start caring about the individual, you start caring about the countries where they come from, you start caring about their country, their culture, their words, their language. So like, if you really wanted to address the climate crisis and you could only do one thing, you join Black Lives Matter. Oh, and closely behind that, you join Extinction Rebellion like me and come and protest. But like, that's just my score. I would have just to say, Alison, you were on. I heard some really good lyrics from you, and like, you're definitely an ally. And I would have liked to have heard, because I can't imagine you were always an ally, Alison. And I don't know if I heard that story. So I hope one day I get to come back here and hear about that movement of time and position. And I would really like to know why that happened. What was your thingy? Because you know, you can be a great example to some of our Black allies out there about, you know, this transition, what it means, how it feels like, which is painful. Because just to say, I had a friend who rang me up the other day and told me that after the George Floyd thing that they got it, and they said to me, I got in so many fights, Alfie, that you had to pull me out of, and I know you were so scared, because if they wanted to turn on anyone, it wouldn't have been me. I was a pretty little blonde-haired girl acting out in the pub. They would have gone for you. And I knew that she got it then. It took a long time for her to get that. So I would love to hear more from you, Alison, just to give an example to Black allies about how this transition is, how hard it is, what you have to work for. I think I'm going to pass over.
That's why Alison's volunteered, twisted her arm to come to the UKSA.
Oh, that's brilliant. So I shall see you again, Alison. I shall see you again.
Marvina, give us a couple of words to say goodnight and finish.
I think for those watching this, when you're an activist, a climate justice activist trying to fight for racial harmony and the environment, for the Black people watching this, it's lonely. It's very lonely. And I'm trying to fight for you. So I know it's not about me, it's not about my ego. We ain't getting money for this. When I say Black Lives Matter, I just mean for my allies. I'm tired of the microaggression. I'm tired of trying to make you see me. I know I'm asking you out now to say be an ally, but like, can I ask you to be human, please? Treat me the way you want to be treated, just the way you treat your loved ones. That's it. It's really tiring, and I'm not going to cry right now. And it's not me trying to be a strong Black woman. I just don't have the tears. That numb. It's that front of the head kind of drain, because it's like being rejected so many times. But I'm okay to be this vulnerable. And it's okay. Because if I'm not vulnerable, to be able to show other people that we need to take the mask off. Our environment is important to me. This earth is so beautiful. I know you're not used to people like me saying what I'm saying, because you expect me to be saying something other. But it's a beautiful place. And I want to live and die in it. And I want my children to do the same, and their children's children to do the same, and your children to do the same. So let's figure out this relationship, okay? It's going to be bumpy. But once we work out the kinks, it'll be fine. It'll hopefully just grow. And allies, it's not easy to be an ally. It's going to be hard some days. You're going to mess it up. You're going to mess it up. But don't worry, I'll be there. I will be there. And I'll be there to say, okay, you shouldn't have done that, but okay, we'll fix it. Love you deeply. I know you don't know me yet, but I know I love you already. So try and just love me too. Okay, I'll wait for you.
On that note, on that love-filled ending, thank you to these wonderful women who have spent this time together this evening. I just have so much gratitude. I'm going to stop the live now. Thank you to everyone that was watching as well.